Hello, my soul brothers and soul sisters. I am Ron Smith, and this is the Dr. Ron Smith Investigate Show, where we separate the real from fake, the fact from fiction, and give you the winner's edge. And sometimes we're able to turn your water into wine. This is episode 16, and we are in season 2. And our platform, as you already know, is the talk, the conversation I wish I had. And basically, we talk about financial literacy. And we are in graduation season. I mean, from the last 3 or 4 weeks, there have been a graduation almost every weekend. And with that in mind, with all the prompt and circumstances, all the graduates marching in, all the guest speakers, the senior class presidents speaking, the president of the university speaking, you have all these speakers who are getting their honorary PhDs. All this sometimes right now you have a graduate sitting at home, and those memories are still exciting, but they are fading. And the thing about it is that this means that you are officially an adult. All right, so hey, now that we are doing those adulting things, now there are some keys that I want you to really keep in mind, and I'm going to be going over this on the next couple of episodes. One of the things, topic one, maintaining relationships. And as you find as time goes on, some relationships is going to blossom and some are going to fade. But one of the relationships that I want you to keep in mind and keep attached and keep connected with is the village that helped you got to this point. And that's the family, friends, uncles, aunties, cousin, all those people who supported you to get to this point. And also, don't forget, while you was living in that bubble on campus, or if you were, off-campus student, your sorority sisters, your fraternity brothers, the people that you played intramural ball with, and sometimes you may even play for the university. Stay in touch with those individuals, because the thing about it is, as you move up in your career, whether you're seeking higher education, you might be working on your master's or working to get your PhD. Those same people who helped you get to this point are some of the same people who are actually guide you to the rest of your life. And one of the things that I want you to keep in mind is almost like what I talk about finance, assets and liabilities. There's some people in your life who are going to be assets, and there's some people in your life that were liability. And basically, the choices that you make with those individuals would add to your success, or they'll be anchors to where you want to go. One of the beautiful things about if you're graduating now than when I graduated, a few days ago, is that you can use the phone, you can use text, you use FaceTime, and doing that, the COVID showed us how to use Zoom, or you can actually use a free conference call. All those things that you have at your disposal now that wasn't even available a couple of years ago, that you can actually stay in touch with different people. The big thing I want you to talk about relationship is, don't be afraid to ask, whether that's for information or asking someone to actually be your mentor. And I want to just pause there for a few seconds, is that there are people in your field of study that are masters of what they are doing. And basically, you're right now, if you're a recent graduate, you're entry level. And basically, you're going to be a novice or neophyte, and then you're going to be a journeyman. And then hopefully and preferably, you'll learn how to actually master your craft. And that's one advice that I want to give you. Master your craft. You want to be the port that basically you are indispensable, and that you are able to have options. One of the things about career-wise is that when people get ready to downsize, what they look for is almost like when the ship is sinking, the dead weight are getting thrown overboard first. What you want to make sure you are one that individual or that corporation or that company that you are so indispensable, you be one of the last people standing. As a matter of fact, they won't even consider throwing you overboard. And that is probably the most job security that you can actually achieve, is being the master of your craft. And it's going to take time, and make sure you get mentorship from the right people. The next thing I want to talk about is one of the quotes that came from Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, "Your health is your wealth." You have to make sure you take care of yourself. I used this example before, and I want to use it again, is that basically, if someone told you that you had one vehicle for the rest of your life, whether that's going to be, your tricked out expedition, or your G-Wagon, or your Mercedes, or your Lexus, or your Bugatti, whatever it might be, they said you're going to have one for your lifetime. Would you make sure that you have your maintenance plan and you stayed on schedule for all your oil changes, your tire rotations, your waxes, that you drive within your speed limit, and you watch where you park your Bugatti? Well, you're only going to get one body. You know what they say, garbage in, garbage out. Well, what you put into this body will determine your energy level and determine, how long this actually lasts. I want to actually just take a pause, because Ed Dwight waited 6 decades to go into space. He was the first Black candidate for being an astronaut. And just imagine that if he never took care of his body for the last 6 decades, he would never experience being the first and the oldest person to actually go into space. Man, in fact, he beat William Shatner for about 6 years. So delay don't mean denied, but can you live long enough to actually see your dreams come true? And I'm going to say that again. Can you live long enough to actually see some of your dreams come true? And one of the things that basically, I'm going to talk about my 100-year plan a little later when we talk about finance, but because he took care of his body, he was able to go back through the training to go back up into the Blue Origin. I think it was Jeff Bezos' operation, that he was one of the 6 persons that actually went up in orbit. But my point is that take care of your body, because this is the vehicle that's going to take you where you need to go. And without question, your health is your greatest asset. And when you have the energy, the vitality of life, your life would be so much worth living and enjoying. Imagine that you had all the money in the world, and you could go to the 5-star restaurants in Dubai, which I have been to. The Burj Khalifa is the restaurant that's shaped like a sailboat. Had a great meal. Me and my wife had a great meal there. But imagine, basically, you can go anywhere in the world, and your health denied you from enjoying the food, actually just walking, the touring, all those things. So you only got one body. Make sure you take care of it. And your health determines your passion that you have for your craft. Can you imagine that basically you are virtuoso in a musician, but you don't have the energy to actually play? And basically, it's been proven that basically the healthy people work harder and they earn more. And think about if you ever bump your toe, the pain that little spot on your body causes you, it affects you mentally it affects you emotionally, and it will affect you spiritually. So make sure you take care of your body. Now, this next topic, we're gonna go really deep in the woods, because basically, besides your spirituality, your spouse or your significant other can make you or break you. Now, I know basically, we are visual people. Basically, we look at the brick house or the masculine man, that we had these visual, either the cheerleader or the captain of the football team, especially if you just graduated from college. Those are the people who have the physiques that we're always attracted to. But that is not going to always hold a relationship together. So, one of the things that when you are looking for a partner, you got to make sure that you have the same qualities that you're looking for. And I give this example, and I joke with my friend, I said that basically, if you are looking for a Michelle Obama, you have to at least be a Barack to come to the table with that. So if you're looking at Beyonce, you at least have to come to the table with Jay-Z coming to the table with. So if you're looking for Alicia Keys, you need to be at least a Swiss beat to have something to come to the table with. Because oftentimes we already have aspirations of the significant others, and then we don't have what they are looking for. But see, there's some conversations you need to have during the dating process. And, it has to have some things with depth, and one of the things, there are three things that actually dissolves unions. And I'm going to go over those two things, but I'm going to mention these two things first. Politics and religion, because, it can work, but at the same time, some of those things can get in the way, because politics and religion are the things that actually comes up in everyday conversation. We're getting ready into an election year. So imagine, if I was a Democrat married to a Republican and seeing all the stuff that's going on, what kind of conversation that's going to be? I'm not saying it wouldn't work, and I'm not saying that basically you have to be have the same affiliation, but you need to have at least something that you have in common with. But I think the main thing is basically your spirituality. I'm not a religious person. I'm more of a spiritual person. When you talk about religion, you start, that's where you stop at, and that's not where you grow from. But it is where you worship has a lot to do with how your union will stay together or how it will dissolve. So that's a conversation that you need to have. But three things that's most important is what most people don't even talk about, is talk about sex, and they'll talk about their form of communications, and they don't talk about finance. And of course, basically, since I don't know nothing about sex, that's a subject for somebody else. But that should be a conversation you do have with your significant other. And then communications is key. I am somewhat of an introvert. So basically, and for males, we know that we cannot out-talk females. That's a no-go, no-brainer. But at the same time, I have to learn how to listen and to see what are you really saying. It would always say that basically you have two ears and one mouth for a reason, which means that basically, I should listen more than I talk. But you kind of wonder, some people didn't get that memo or get that email. But communication is vital to your relationship. And I just want to talk about, those are the things that when you are in a dating process, when you're going out to eat, when you should casually mention those things. But we're going to take a break at halftime, and we're going to continue our conversation about the grad edition of the Get Your Money Right. Hello, my soul brothers and soul sisters. We are back and we're talking about the grad edition of the talk, the conversation I wish I had. And basically, what we're talking about, how we maintain relationships after graduation. And we're talking about making sure we use the phone, we use the text, and basically we use Zoom and free conference calls. And basically, you can get all your girls and all your guys on, and basically stay in contact with them because you're really right now where you have your BA or your BS, you might consider working on your master's or a PhD, and you can always have certain people that you should be able to bridge that gap of knowledge with and tell you what you need to do next. And I mentioned finding a mentor, and also make sure your health is your wealth. I mentioned basically that's what the quote came from. Ralph Waldo Emerson, and how important that is because you have one body. And I mentioned that basically Ed Dwight, he was 90 years old and he went up in space a couple of days ago. And after 6 decades, basically he was one of the first Black astronaut candidates. Of course, during that time, we're talking back in the early 60s. You can imagine why he didn't get into space. That's another conversation for another time. But think about it. If he had treated his body wrong, he would not be able to see this experience. That was over 60 years ago. So basically, he was in his late 20s or early 30s when he was the first candidate. So delaying in your journey doesn't mean that it has to be denied if you take care of yourself. And basically, we left off talking about the conversation you should have with your significant others, because that individual can make you or break you. And we talked about basically where I ended is how relationship dissolves. And basically it's sex, lack of communications, and finance. And I can go into depth why actually finance is actually number one. There's more divorces caused from finances than any of the other two that I mentioned. And maybe I'll discuss that and why in another episode. Now, let's talk about finance. One of the things that for sure, because soon as you the bed you laid in, the alarm clock you shut off, the floor that you step on, the bathroom that you went to use, brush your teeth and get ready for your day, the clothes that you put on, the apartment or house that you left, the car that you drove to school or driving to work, the lunch, the breakfast, the dinner that you have, and wash, rinse, and repeat. All those things cost money. And if you put a dollar sign on all those things, even actually breathing or not breathing will cost you money. So we're living in what I call a capitalistic democracy. And a capitalistic democracy is basically, yes, you do have freedoms, and basically, our Constitution and amendments always say what you have. You have rights. What I like for John Hope Franklin said that basically we had, for minorities and women, we have civil rights. Now it's time for civil rights. But one of the things that I want to share with you is that when I was in school, my advice that came from my mother is that basically get a good education, get good grades, get your good career, stay in that career for 20 years, get your gold watch, retire, find you a good girl and marry. There's nothing wrong with that data, but you got to realize that from her position, her 100 years plan was the things that I just mentioned. Now, you got to realize that basically my mother, if she was still living on this side of heaven, she would be 103 years old. So I have really lived out her 100-year plan. Now, reason I mention that is that I cannot give my children the same advice that my mother gave me, because that is dated information. And 9 times out of 10, when you hear people give you information, especially financially, it's dated information. You think about it. The phone that you came into in 2022, the iPhone probably went through at least 4 different updates and changes. So the technology that was used back then has changed dramatically. So, it's amazing that we are still using the same information that we used before. So during my mother's time and advice she was giving, basically, you could depend on Social Security. You could depend on a pension plan from a company or corporation. And basically, right now, you can, at that time, we were switching over to the 401k. So retirement equal to a 3-legged stool. But I like for what my good friend Crockett Oak said last week, and I'm going to get into the little details, but he said that basically things have changed. So now my advice as far as, get your college education if you are planning to be a professional in that. And basically, attorneys, doctors, teachers, attorneys, etc. But one of the things that I would share with you, why not go to get a trade for those who are mechanically inclined? So basically, I know from just going in and getting my car worked on, they put on the invoice how much they are paying, how much the time that mechanic spent on my vehicle. And if you see that, it's almost think that basically he should get a PhD, the amount of money they charging me per hour, and they're not going to keep my vehicle less than 2 hours actually doing that. So imagine an auto mechanic, a plumber, guys doing HVAC, or even a barber. And basically what you're doing, you're having a career and you're giving skills, but at the same time, you can actually go into business with this whole model. And basically you could do it. You do the same thing with other skills, but I'm just saying, my advice is that why have the student loan debt of a 4-year institution that costs you minimum $50,000 to up to $500,000. It all depends on where you're getting your education from. And you also have a career that basically you could start off, being an intern or a novice, and then you turn into a journeyman, and then you be a master HVAC guy, a master mechanic, or a master barber. And you can set up your own school, and you can actually train others. I just gave you 3 different concepts, ideas. So basically, when you think about it, what would be from this point to next would be a 100-year plan for you. And that's what I want to talk about. Basically, that's career-wise. But here's another thing I want to talk about is, have you ever loaned someone some money? And I'm quite sure a lot of you guys are shaking your head. Now, that experience could be good, bad, or ugly. Now, the good part is that they paid you they paid you back the time they said they were going to pay you back. The bad is they paid you later than they said they were going to pay you back, but still they paid you back. The ugly is they don't pay you at all. Now, why am I saying that? Okay, what is your credit score? Is my point. Because basically credit score tells a bank or a financial lender of how you have represented yourself on a financial level. How trustworthy are you? Your credit score is a reflection of your spending habits, or the lack of you being true to what you're saying, what your word is. I know we used to have this term where we used to say, hey, my word is bond. Well, is your word being bond? Now, one of the things I've learned that basically when I was in school, I used to get all these credit card things in the mail. And I've said this oftentimes, that basically I didn't understand what credit utilization was, which means basically I maxed out the card, which means that I had to roll over money going to the next month. Basically, I really just sabotaged the whole system, which means that actually I graduated in the red, which means, of course, simplified what I'm speaking of is basically if I had $1,000 line of credit, I spent $1,000, probably $999 on it, which means basically I should have just spent $250, make sure I paid that off each month. And that way I would have actually established a good credit score. But think about it. A lot of minorities, include myself, thought it was racism, sexism, and people was prejudiced, reason why I couldn't obtain certain things. But think about it. If you have a credit score less than 620 and your debt to income ratio is in the negative, you are behind the 8 ball. You have just denied yourself the access to the free enterprise system. And okay, remember I mentioned that basically we are in a capitalist democracy. And if you can't get access to capital at a rate that will be beneficial to you compared to others who have a different rate, then you're behind the 8 ball. You can't get a decent car loan below a 630 credit score. You can't get a decent mortgage below a 680 credit score. You can't even get a small business loan if you are a credit risk below a 700. So you're thinking about if all things are equal, that racism and sexism and people being prejudiced against you are not in play. Think about what you have done. Either you're going to set yourself up in a position that basically you will be able to exercise certain things in this capitalistic democracy, or you're going to put yourself behind. Not that you can't get the car, not that you can't get the rent apartment to rent or get a mortgage. It's just going to cost you more. And the thing about it, as a recent college graduate, that's a conversation that I would have with you. And that's hopefully the conversation that I'm having right now, is that you need to make sure that you get your credit report, free annual credit report. You can get your credit report from either the TransUnion, Experian, or Equifax. Those are the three major. There's some minor ones that actually do the credit also, but those are the major ones. Look at your credit score. See what it is before you start trying to get the apartment, get the car, or get a mortgage, or even start a business. Once you get your score, it takes at least, if there are some things that you need to clear up on it, it takes at least 6 months to actually work through that. And one of my future episodes, I'm going to tell you how to actually do that. So basically, we're talking about getting your money right, the grad edition. I mentioned some things about maintaining your relationships, taking care of your health, and your spouse can make you or break you, and also finance. Those are the areas basically you have to be able to control and master, and they are within your sphere of influence to actually do that. One of the things that we're going to talk about maybe next week, and this is a bonus. If you want to actually be wealthy instead of just being rich, and there's a major difference. Being rich is actually having cash flowing out. Being wealthy is actually having assets that actually work for you. And basically, one of the things that, and I mentioned that Crockett Oaks mentioned last week, is that you should have at least 4 to 7 income streams and actually to be wealthy in this country. Those income streams could be your job, real estate ventures, your side hustles, which, Avon, Mary Kay, those things are good. Being cutting hair on the weekend or after work, that's good. Remember, I mentioned that being an auto mechanic, being a plumber, HVAC system, being those things, you can have the side hustles. A friend of mine just retired school teacher, and basically she tutors on the side on weekends and after school, and that's a side hustle. And basically, I had a nephew who actually create beats, and basically he get paid to make somebody beats to a rap song. So those are some of the things that we're going to continue to talk about, especially those additional income streams, because that's going to make you successful. My time is up, and I thank you for yours. Until next time, peace.